Welcome to this episode of The Marketing Companion, brought to you by G-Shift and Voices Heard Media. Here are your hosts, Mark Schaefer and Tom Webster.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Marketing Companion, broadcasting high atop Rockefeller Center in New York City. It is Mark Schaefer with my co-host, the sonorous and sassy Tom Webster. How the hell are you, Tom?
I'm sassy. I'm sassy. I've always wanted to be called sassy.
That's just not a sassy voice to me, but...
No, I think it's sassy.
Well, we've got a really big show today.
Huge.
And we've got some very interesting topics. We're going to talk a little bit about personas in the use of marketing. There was a brouhaha a little bit on my blog post, and Tom's got some strong ideas about this as well. We are going to talk about a couple of timely and interesting news events around corporate culture and some corporate transitions in the media business. But first, we would like to start off with a bit of reflection and a special announcement that we are coming into the end of our second year of podcasting here on the Marketing Companion. And we thought this would be a good time to rebrand our podcast. So we've been thinking of some new names for the podcast based on reader feedback and what we've been learning about ourselves as we've been evolving. We haven't prepared this ahead of time. Tom just had some ideas. I've got some ideas. So Tom, why don't you lead off? What is your what is one of your top ideas for rebranding the Marketing Companion?
Well, I think it would help boost our traffic if we could kind of co-opt another name, and kind of embrace confusion a little. I think that's fair to say.
That's on brand.
That's very much on brand. So what I thought we would do is call ourselves cereal, like breakfast cereal.
Okay. That would certainly embrace confusion. But see, I was thinking the same way, because I was thinking, what else is out there that is so similar to us that we could kind of mix up the names and we could get all this traffic because people would think it was us. So my number one idea for rebranding the podcast is called The Kardashians.
The Kardashians.
Yeah, because the similarities are undeniable. I think it's just kind of a natural extension of the way we live our lives and our personalities. And I think it would drive the right audience to our podcast.
Which Kardashian are you exactly?
Well, geez, I haven't thought that through.
You should think that through.
Well, that really goes with the persona idea, doesn't it?
It goes very well with the persona idea.
Which Kardashian are you?
Which Kardashian are you?
All right, so what's number 2?
I think any B2B persona can be reduced to a Kardashian.
Yeah.
That's going to be our topic today.
Kardashian or a Disney character.
Yeah. My second idea was that we're really not doing a great job with search engine optimization.
No, we're not.
Our SEO skills are poor. So here's the name that I would propose. Marketing Podcast Sales Selling Best Internet Solutions Show Online Niche Downloads Affiliate 2015 Mesothelioma Viagra Free Porn.
Did you say porn?
That's one of our keywords, yeah. Yeah, but I said marketing in there somewhere. So
I think that's a strong contender.
I think that's a great contender. First of all, you can't miss it.
Yeah. So, so I'm taking my second one is I'm taking a cue from the BuzzFeed playbook, and so another idea for rebranding the podcast is one weird marketing trick to lose belly fat.
And you won't believe number 7.
Yeah. But the problem is, I think we'd actually have to, each week of the podcast, we'd actually have to come up with one weird trick. And I don't know if we can actually do that.
This whole podcast is one weird trick.
What?
I don't mean to pull the wool over your eyes.
The whole podcast.
One
weird trick.
Is one weird trick.
What's number 3?
Well, if you don't like my search engine idea or my co-opt another title idea, I think this really distills the essence of our show. Two broke girls.
Why? What is that?
Okay, we all the reader mail we get it's the show that we're most compared to. Two broke girls. So
That's true.
yeah.
Well, also going with some of our listener feedback, I thought I came up with this name. In fact, it was suggested by several of our listeners, Mark Schaefer and what's his name?
How did I know that was coming? I'm Mark Schaefer, and I'm what's his name?
Well, and I know you're taking that purely in the spirit of friendship and companionship that is meant.
Yeah, I know. There's not a drop of malice at all behind that. I know that.
No.
Wow. So what's are we gonna have the listeners decide, or are we?
Well, of course.
Are we just gonna go with two broke girls? Because let's face it, that's the best.
Well, no, I think we should take a cue from the Zappos playbook and make this. What are they calling it? A holacracy?
Holacracy, yeah, holacracy.
Yeah. So it's basically rule by anarchy. So yeah, it's we're an open book. We've put the 6 names out there. So yeah, you pick the name, and I'm sure there'll be a fabulous prize package for the winner.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet to be determined.
Yeah, a fabulous prize
We
package.
sure have a lot of stuff stacked up in
items.
the marketing labs that, we've got a lot of stuff that really hasn't, we've got a lot of inventory to move here at the Marketing Companion Laboratories. But anyway, this is a serious podcast for serious people. So do you have your serious face on now, Tom?
I do, yeah.
I can't see you, so I'm trusting you.
Yeah, I'm really, really serious right now.
Okay. So let's kind of go with the flow here on this whole Zappos thing. You brought a news item to my attention, which I'm vitally interested in. So what's going on with Zappos?
Well, we talked about this before on the podcast, that Zappos was instituting a holacracy. And basically,
I just can't help but laugh at that name. I think it's so ridiculous. But anyway,
I think it's one of the decks on. It's one of the decks on the Enterprise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Commander Riker, activate the holacracy.
Okay.
Captain, the holacracy has been broken for months. Hanson Crusher.
All right. Wait a minute. What happened to the serious part?
I'm sorry. I got taken over there for a minute.
All right.
Invested by the spirit of two broke girls. Well, we talked about the Zappos move to create a holacracy, and they were basically offering a package to employees that basically didn't want to go along with the plan.
And let's remind, what is the plan? What is a holacracy?
Well, it's kind of difficult to simplify, but the essence of it is self-organizing teams.
Yeah, no leadership, self-management, self-organizing teams. Mm-hmm. And it looks like what was the percentage there, Mark? Was it 14%, 11%? 14% of their employees left.
14% of their workforce took the package, said, we don't buy into this, left. That's, I think, 210 employees, I read. So, and Tony Hsieh, I think, is delighted at this, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, whenever they interview their employees, I mean, I like this company. It's just such a fascinating case study and new thought-provoking way to do business. Whenever they interview their employees, I mean, even if they're going to offer them a job, they give, I think it's $10,000. They offer them $10,000 to not take the job, to make sure that this is something that they really want to do, that they really want to get involved in. So it's interesting to me that after they vet these people and they go through this process to make sure they've got the right people on board, they're having this little shift, and 14% took this package to be jettisoned from the company. So it's like, I don't know. I wish I just were a fly on the wall in that company to hear the conversations and see what was going on. That 14% of the people say we don't buy into this new management structure, and we'd rather just leave.
Well, if you were a fly on the wall, you would be of equal billing to anybody else in there, so you could participate in decisions,
That's
even
true.
even as a fly. The funny thing about I would love to interview those 210 employees. I think to Zappos' credit, they have not been painted as in any negative light whatsoever. They signed on to work with Zappos. Zappos decided to change the way that they're structured and organized, and I think it's just fine that those people decided to leave and take the package. And again, Tony Hsieh's probably delighted, but I would love to see the titles of the people that left. At least I wonder if there were a lot of middle managers that left, or even a lot of probably not senior managers. But that's always been one of, I think, the criticisms about the holacracy system, is that it on the one hand, it does encourage self-direction and groups and things like that. But what if you're just a natural leader?
Well,
what happens
that's right.
to you?
I think that's one of the very big issues. And I have a background in organizational development, and a lot of people don't know that. I don't talk about it a lot, but I've actually got a master's degree in that discipline. And one of the things you learn early on when studying corporate culture and how to get things done in work teams is that there is no such thing as a self-directed work team. There has to be a leader. It's a business and a company cannot be a democracy. And if you're a natural leader, you're going to rise to the top. You can't help but lead and help give some direction to the team. So, on the surface, unless there's something here I'm missing, is that this is something that's just destined to fail. And the other interesting thing, the one kind of observation is that all these people are leaving before this thing goes. And then the other thing is, why has it taken so long to begin to implement it? Because this was announced probably a year and a half ago.
Well, it is such an enormous paradigm shift, though, in the how you think about your work, right? I don't think it's something you can just. Well, look, you either have to do it overnight, like literally overnight, or you have to have some kind of an onboarding process to it, because it is a pretty radical rethink of the organization.
Yeah, and I just wonder if they've been getting pushback. If people are saying, "Well, wait a minute, we just don't get it. We just don't know how this is going to work," that they kind of had to pause and maybe bring in some organizational development experts or something. So anyway, it's a company that's very admired. They've been very successful. I'm not really willing to bet against Tony Hsieh at this point, but everything I know, everything I've learned, everything I've experienced firsthand in business and with leadership would say, this is going to be really problematic, but it'll be fascinating to watch.
Well, we'll find out.
Yes. And speaking of paradigm shifts, we have an awesome new sponsor, and it's so really exciting to talk about this sponsor. It's GoToWebinar from our friends at Citrix. Both Tom and I have very, very good friends at Citrix, and it's so timely that they would become a sponsor of our program, because I've been noticing that more and more webinars that I do, and I do a lot of them, are on GoToWebinar. Have you have you been using that, Tom? Have you used GoToWebinar?
I'm doing 2 of them today.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's our webinar and meeting tool of choice at Edison, certainly.
Yeah. And the thing I love about it is it just works. And whenever you give a talk or a webinar, there's always something that goes wrong. And it's just so refreshing to know that the underlying technology that we're using is GoToWebinar, because I just know how to use it. It's intuitive, and it just flat out works. So we're just absolutely delighted to have GoToWebinar as one of our new sponsors. So thank you guys at Citrix.
Thank you, Citrix.
Yep. Now, the other news item that we were talking about is, I guess this week, guess who's buying AOL?
I don't have to guess. I read the story.
I know. I was building tension in our dialogue.
Is it Snapple?
Yeah. Verizon.
Verizon. Now,
Yeah.
why would Verizon buy AOL?
You know,
I'm sure you have a take on that.
it made my head spin a little bit, and I mean because Verizon is just full disclosure has been one of my clients, and they're not. I don't have anything active with them right now, but I guess I screwed it up somewhere down the line. But what do you think about this? I mean, why would a telecom? I mean, I think of AOL primarily these days as a company that's reinventing themselves around content. They own Huffington Post, TechCrunch. They've done a pretty good job with that. So what's going on with? I mean, does it make sense to you?
Part of it makes sense to me. I can't imagine that that HuffPo and TechCrunch are part of the long-term Verizon plan there. But AOL pretty dramatically reinvented itself as an ad tech platform.
Yeah.
Under Tim Armstrong, and I think it's that ad tech that Verizon wants to get a hold of. I mean, they've lest we forget that the AOL Time merger has not been viewed favorably by history.
One of the worst ever.
One of the worst ever, right? But when Tim Armstrong took over AOL, he turned it around, right? He returned quite a bit of value. I think it was spun out at 3.4 billion, and
Right.
Verizon's going to pay another billion extra on top of that. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good 5 years work for Tim Armstrong. So so kudos to him, and kudos to AOL for reinventing themselves. I can't imagine that HuffPo is part of the Verizon plan going forward, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, I know that. Who knows? I mean, I think that some of the analysts are suggesting that it's not going to be part of the long-term plan. But I know that Verizon has been actively building their content portals, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but the interesting thing to me is the ad tech. I mean, if you look at the big platforms today, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, retargeting platforms. I wonder what this symbolizes for Verizon. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it all depends on we'll see. Yeah, I love HuffPo. I'm a faithful reader to a lot of their content, so
yeah.
I assume that they will continue unmolested.
Yep, and I love TechCrunch too. So there's some. It'll be interesting to see how some of these important content platforms where they may end up eventually as well. And speaking of content platforms,
Mark, you can't have great content unless you have great writing. Am I right?
you are absolutely right, my friend.
Because I tell you, I've written some crappy content. But
Sounds like you could use a boot camp.
I could use the marketing writing boot camp from our friends at Marketing Profs. This actually is a fantastic program. I've seen chunks of the content and the curriculum. It's normally $600, $595. But if you're a Marketing Companion faithful listener, and we know you're out there, and you go to mprofs.com/companion. Let me emphasize, /companion. That sounds like a good horror movie. mprofs.com/companion, and use the code companion. You will save $200 on the marketing writing bootcamp. It's the most popular course that Marketing Profs has. It's 13 classes. They're each about 30 or 40 minutes long, so you've got over 7 hours of learning there if you're good at math like me. Online, on demand, however you want to learn, and it starts June 11th. And I can think of no better people to teach you how to write marketing materials than the folks at Marketing Profs. So mprofs.com/companion.
Super good teachers up there too.
Very good teachers. Yeah, they spend a lot of time on instructional design, which I appreciate. So
let's turn to our main topic for today, shall we?
it's about time.
Yeah. So I wrote this little blog post, and I have to admit, I kind of knew it would raise some hackles.
You poked the bear a little.
Yeah, poked the bear a little bit, but I did it on purpose. And I don't do that very often. I mean, usually when I write something controversial, it's as much as a surprise to me as anybody else. But I was at a marketing conference, and there were a couple presentations about marketing personas, and some of the people around me were kind of saying, "Oh gosh, this has really become an overused technique. It's being used incorrectly in so many places." And I had some personal experiences where, and first of all, let me just say that there is certainly a role, an important role, for creating personas in many aspects of business, especially complex global businesses. You can use them for user interface design. You can use them to onboard people to help them understand your business. There's lots of uses, but one of the ways that I see they're being used that I'm concerned about is in the creation of content. Because one of the themes that has been consistent with me in my blog, in my books, and my speeches is this idea that the most human companies will win. That deep down, we want to buy from companies that we know and that we trust, and that the real challenge going forward isn't going to be the platforms or the advertising. It's going to be, how do we scale this humanity? How do we scale our ability to connect our people with other people in real ways, in meaningful ways? And I'm not saying that marketing automation isn't going to play some role in that. So the concern I have is that if we start relying on a persona, and in my mind, a persona is a characterization of a certain demographic group or buyer group that seems to be consistent, that we can have in our mind. Here's Sally, procurement manager, and she's 40 years old, and she has 2 kids, and has a bachelor degree, and she's stressed about this. That if we start creating content, based on a script, based on what we think people want to hear, that we move away from this human connection. And I'm speaking from personal experience because I'm being honest and vulnerable here about a big mistake I made. That's the way I approached my blog when I started blogging. I came from this traditional marketing background of personas and messages and target audiences and staying on message. And what I've learned is that that doesn't work anymore as far as creating content along those lines. You've got to have the ability to insert your story into the message, even if you're a big company. And we see examples of companies doing that. So I'll get off my soapbox and turn it over to you. But bottom line, yes, there is a role for it. I have a concern that it's misdirecting something that I think is going to be important around content creation going forward.
Well, I'll say this about personas because, we do a lot of work in that area. I've got a big persona study out in the field right now, actually. It's a poor potter who blames the clay. And I think a properly constructed persona is a fine tool. The problem is how that gets translated into content. A number of years ago, I worked with a startup in London. It was kind of an entertainment startup. And as a part of the process of putting together their content plan, I did a whole bunch of research into, a type of lifestyle and entertainment content to see what people liked and didn't like. And I delivered this research, and some of the creative folks on the team looked through it, and they said, well, I see these things that people like, and of course they're the things that people like, and if we just do what this research tells us to do, it's going to be a boring product. And what I suggested to them is the same thing I would suggest to anybody that is considering the use of personas. And first let's refer to personas that are properly done, that you've done some research to build, and that they aren't just sort of rectally derived. But if you have a proper persona, look at it this way: it doesn't tell you what to do. What it should do is tell you what not to do. I think the best use of a persona, or any kind of research direction in content, you should view it as the guardrails to your. You need to have the roadmap in your head. Mm-hmm. You need to have the vision, and I think the persona research and the structures of a persona can tell you, don't go off the rails here, right? Mm-hmm. Don't do this. They don't care about this, and they don't care about that. So let's not worry about those things. If you use research like that to tell you this is what to do, then you're sort of going to settle on the lowest common denominator. Mm-hmm. But if you use it to tell you, you know what, you can operate within these parameters, just don't do this and that, then you have quite a bit of leeway.
Well, and I think that is good advice. Because one of the dangers in content creation is that you do start to stray from the strategy. And I think personas can be one tool to help you, stay within certain guidelines, stay within the creek bed, let's say. But I think it all has to tie back to your marketing strategy. What are you trying to deliver? What is the goal for your content? And you have to constantly keep all of those factors in mind when going forward. Because I have seen this where companies start to get into content creation mode, and they come back a year later and they say, wait a minute, what are we doing here? This is so far off where we started. And they start responding to customer feedback or interests of the writers or wild ideas being flown out there, and it starts to stray. And even if you're off by 1 degree over a period of time, you can be pretty far from the mothership.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And I think, in some ways, it's almost better to build personas based on no research than it is a little bit of research or lousy research. You can actually go worse there. Like I say, we do this work all the time. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was, I don't want to be too snarky here, but when you wrote this post, there were certainly some proponents of persona development who left comments. You had a lot of comments on that post, mm-hmm. and one of them mentioned that they had spoken with over 400 people last year to build those personas. And I was thinking, 400 people is a bad week for us, right? I mean, we talk to a lot of people in the work that we do, but the problem is not so much as I said, the development of the persona itself. It's how that gets translated into content. And I think the biggest problem with persona-driven content is that it still starts with what. It still starts with what you need or want to say, right? Now you can develop these personas. You can develop, Outsource Oliver and some of my other favorite ones to pick on. Mm-hmm. And you read some of these bullet points. Outsource Oliver cares about maximizing return on investment. Well, no, Outsource Oliver doesn't want to get fired. That's what Outsource Oliver really cares about. Right. He doesn't want to make a decision that's going to get him fired.
Yeah.
But when you start forming that content, what my wife Tamsin would call sender-centric content around, all right, this is the product we have to talk about. This is the what that we have to talk about. Mm-hmm. And now let's slice it these different ways to fit these personas. That's boring content.
Yeah.
And it's not the persona's fault. Yeah. It's that you started with you.
Mm-hmm. I guess what you're talking about really harkens back to a strategy that I use, and I like that idea of the sender-centric content, because what I advise my clients is never confuse what you're selling with what people are buying. Yeah. And I've got an example, a case study that I used in one of my books where I was working for a regional telecom company, and they were like engineers and they loved every gadget, and these were the biggest geeks you could ever imagine. And they said, man, people are buying from us because we have the latest and greatest stuff, and we know all this technology. And when I went out and talked to the customers, a common theme emerged, and that theme was, we don't care about the technology. We don't want to know about it. all we care about is staying online and having our communication systems work even in a blackout or a crisis. You know, this could be like a prison or you know, a school system where the communications just cannot go down. And they said, we trust these people. They are the authority for business communications in our industry. So I started seeing, well, what these people are buying is comfort and authority, and they don't care about the technology. And so we completely changed their marketing program. It went from geeky, techie to we're your voice of authority. We're like a big blanket around you. We're going to take care of you any time of day or night. You never have to worry because we're going to be there. And it was just a revelation to the president of the company. And luckily, you know, they adjusted. They changed their marketing and they went forward and they've really dominated their marketplace. So I love that idea. Now, is that a persona? You know, these people care about staying up. I mean, to me, that's good marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you know, personas can also be helpful, I think, with the flow of a site. If you are, you know, you write engaging content, first of all, but I think that there are ways that you can track the various ways that people flow through on a website to making a decision, right? And you may learn that people who investigate this fact have this concern. And so here's the next piece of content we should feed them once they have consumed that content.
Right,
you know,
right.
That stuff I think is pretty smart. But ultimately, and if I can do a tiny self-plug here, I'm doing a half-day workshop on this at the Marketing Profs B2B Forum this fall.
I'm going to be speaking at that too.
This is my plug. Hang on. You'll have your moment. Don't
zip.
Don't overplug my plug.
It's zipped. I've been put in my place.
You've been put in your place. Thank you. You'll have your turn. And that is this: in understanding the difference between an audience and a customer. You know, if you're writing stuff to a customer, that's one thing, but an audience comprises people who are interested in your stuff, aren't interested in your product, don't even know your product exists, don't even know they have the problem your product solves. And all of these people are in your audience. And understanding an audience is different from writing a customer or a prospect persona or profile. And ultimately, being able to translate that information into compelling content means not starting with your crap, starting with your product or whatever it is you're trying to sell. And I think if that is what informs the content you are creating, then all the personas in the world aren't going to help you.
I like that. I like that characterization much better. I think you've really articulated. I wish I had that characterization when I wrote the original post. It probably would have helped people understand a little bit more. That's exactly what I was trying to get across. So, well, that sounds like an interesting talk that you're going to give, and hopefully we won't be going up against each other, so I can come and listen to you.
Well, I hope that we are, so I can have at least one chance to draw more people to an event than you.
Yeah.
But I probably won't.
Because people at the conference will probably say, geez, should we go see Mark Schaefer or what's his name?
Well, in keeping with titles, the title of my workshop is Avengers 3.
Well, good. I'm sure that'll attract a lot of people at the B2B forum.
You know what should attract a lot of people?
Tell me.
Voices Heard Media.
I'm telling you.
Voices Heard Media makes. They've been our charter sponsor. They've been with us for nearly 2 years.
Yep, 2 years.
Nearly.
Our next episode is number 50.
Wow. We should do something special, don't you think?
Well, we are. We're going to have an extravaganza.
Oh, that's right. We've got the Osmonds. I can't wait for that. That's going to be so much fun. Well, you know, we should have someone from Voices Heard on to thank them for supporting us for almost 2 years.
2 years.
Very grateful to them. And if you enjoy this podcast, and if you have enjoyed it over the past couple of years, show your support. Do check out Voices Heard Media at voicesheardmedia.com. They make some wonderful tools to help scale social engagement online. And they're super smart people. They're local to Mark.
Yeah, they are.
They're near the Marketing Companion Labs.
Yeah.
So
they're not only a good sponsor, they're a good friend. They're good friends because they're just wonderful wonderful people down there. And of course, we also love G-Shift, our partners in Toronto. And this is basically, they have amazing technology to measure and manage your social presence online across many platforms, paid media, earned media, traditional media. They're incorporating all this input into one amazing dashboard, and they're really forward thinking. They're developing some very amazing things out there. I really believe in what they're doing. And so check them out, get to know the people at G-Shift, and you won't be sorry.
And thanks for listening to Two Broke Girls.
Yes, Two Broke Girls, a.k.a. the Kardashians. And this is what we'll do, Tom. I have an assignment for you, because between now and the next episode that we record, you must figure out which Kardashian you are. And we'll explore that a little bit.
Okay. I think I got that, but we'll save that.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We appreciate every one of you. This is Mark Schaefer and Tom Webster signing off for now.